Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Mark from Solo Games, and today we're going to talk about very exciting, very cool Magic set that's coming down the line. And yes, it's absolutely time to talk about the Lord of the Rings set. Originally, I think I think we saw this like the peak of like them releasing this schedule, whatever, for the future. I want to say like almost a year ago. And back at that time, I did want to comment on it, but honestly, just didn't have a lot to say. And earlier this year, even a lot of people were asking me, "Hey, Mark, when are you going to talk about the Lord of the Rings set? What do you think is going to happen? It's going to do well? It's not going to do well?" Initially, I had this feeling like it's going to be crappy because it's like a modern set. I don't really understand the point of it. When I first saw the preview a long time ago, like a year ago, I thought it was going to be a Commander set, like Commander Legends, The Lord of the Rings, right? But it actually turned out to be a modern set, so that didn't really make sense. Um, and honestly, now that I've watched the Lord of the Rings first look from like Blake, I would still probably say it doesn't make any sense why this is a modern set. It absolutely feels like a Commander set. But anyways, let's dive into that detail as we go through this whole kind of reflection review of what happened today. So first of all, how does it look so far? How does the set look, right? So obviously it being a first look, we have very little data, but from the little data I've seen so far, I got to say, man, the set is well thought through. Um, it's very flavorful, and there are lots and lots of references, and the cards look clean. The design looks pretty reasonable, and it does feel like, yeah, of course, they're playing with the Lord of the Rings IP. There's a lot on the line for WOTC here, so absolutely they're not going to try to mess this up. This is not one of those sets where you can just kind of like take a back seat and you know kind of like design through the door type of thing. So you really have to put a lot of effort into it. And again, WotC knows this. Yeah, they're not messing around. You can tell from the way that they've put all these little intricate details to even the presentation of this thing. Like the way that this thing is being presented, and the way that this thing is being presented super early, in a lot of ways, is almost more than what they're doing for March the Machines. So think about that for a little bit too. Okay, similar to Phyrexia All Be One, and let's be honest, guys, that was a pretty awesome set, right? So, yeah. Okay, so the details, right? The characters grow up throughout the story and in the cards in increasing rarity. So you have like, I think the ones that they showed was like Frodo, Sam, Gollum, but I'm sure they're gonna have Gandalf, Aragorn, Arwen, like the other main characters. You might even have like Gimli, Legolas, like those other characters too, right? Are going to be growing up throughout the story and as part of the set. This mechanic, by the way, I love. I really liked it from Brothers War. Very flavorful, kind of very collectible as well. And just seeing how the character evolves from their younger or earlier days to their final versions and gaining different abilities as they go. It's kind of cool. Just I think very on flavor. And of course, being that it's a Lord of the Rings set, this is a, top down, like it's all about the specific flavor. It's going to be super like heavy on, in this case, legendary. So legendary theme is really strong in this set. There are legendary lands, legendary creatures, and it's everywhere. So tons of legendaries. There won't be a cycle of dual lands. I know a lot of people were wondering, especially when this was announced as a modern legal set, whether we're going to have like another reprint of fetch lands, the ally color this time, or maybe even possibility of legendary dual lands. So a straight dual land, but with a legendary on it, so you can't like play as many. And of course, there's some discussions about that, right? So you don't get into the whole like reserve list issue. But again, you're printing basically dual lands. That's not happening. The only dual land they printed is Mount Doom, and that is the one land that Blake did talk about. And he explicitly said this is just printed for flavor. It is not going to be a cycle of like pain lands basically for dual lands. There's a lot of abilities on the Mount Doom. It does also like board wipe, which is kind of cool. So yeah, and again, if you're Rakdos, you're gonna get a really nice toy with that Mount Doom land. So that's awesome. The showcase cards so far looks really good. I'm surprised actually. This is the first set of showcase in a long time where the cards are actually very clear. I would say the showcase cards in some ways almost look better than the normal frame because the way that it's kind of designed is very simple but also elegant, and it really showcases like a scene and showcases something very cleanly instead of having like more stuff on it. Like I hate the black and white stuff from Innistrad. I don't like all the like ichor ink, whatever. I feel like I'm getting less of an art. With this showcase set though, it actually feels like I'm getting more, even though sometimes the card themselves are like silhouettes or shadows of the actual scene. But you feel like you definitely see more of the card, which is kind of nice. It's actually clean. So I like that a lot. The Golem example is really good, like where you kind of see a silhouette of him holding the ring. Now it comes into some of the negatives. Like, I don't know why modern, right? Why did they choose modern as the theme for this? Like, it's printed to modern, but there's two parts. One is this is not going to be Modern Horizons level in power level. Okay, so weaker. That's usually when they say that. By the way, they mean weaker. They don't mean stronger. And it was like I think people were really confused about this. They even asked more questions towards the end of the broadcast and said, "Hey, can you just define this? Like, why modern? And is it going to be as powerful as Modern Horizons?" And he explicitly said again, not going to be at Modern Horizons level. The reason they printed to modern was to be more accessible to all players, which just Wizards' way of saying like we need to make more money, like getting more players to play the game. There's some cards obviously they put, if they did not care about modern players at all, then of course the set is going to be super flopped, right? But they did like print a white Remand, which is kind of nice, right? So there's a lot of those kind of options for modern that's kind of interesting. But again, like without seeing the rest of the cards, we don't know, but it does feel like it's going to give modern players a couple options, but it's not really for them. And which comes back to my original theory, like even a year ago, that this is really just a Commander Legends set. In fact, can you imagine if this was Commander Legends Baldur's Gate instead? So instead of having Commander Legends Baldur's Gate, we had the Commander Legends Lord of the Rings. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, let's be real. This is a Commander set. No matter how you put it, no matter how you throw it together, this is absolutely a Commander set, and that's what it is. Look, it's modern legal, but that part really doesn't matter. There are a ton of legendary creatures. There's a ton of cards that are definitely like Commander flavored. They're printing Soul Rings as the special card. I don't know what else we have to say. This is spelling Commander Legends, in any aspect whatsoever. And of course we know, like WOTC has done the data, they've done their homework. Commander makes them money. Not Standard, not like Pioneer, actually is probably helping a lot, but not like, the other formats. Commander is the format that every player wants to play. And so of course, this is Commander Legends, sequels. Tom Bombadil being printed here. That's a commander for sagas. I mean, look at the card. It's 100% a saga commander. So yeah, so people are gonna buy this card. They're gonna build a saga deck around Bombadil, of course, and it's very flavorful. It's cool, but again, it's Commander, right? Nobody's gonna do this in Modern. They're not gonna fetch sagas to chain them or whatever. Okay, I say that, but I feel like now someone's totally gonna build a saga deck and then prove me wrong, and it's gonna be amazing. So who knows? And here's a hot take, right? Just looking at the decks, looking at the names, looking at what they're doing with the decks, I think those Commander decks are going to sell pretty well. I could totally be wrong, not sure, because I haven't seen much of the card. I've seen like 2 cards, I think. But just think about it. This feels more like they realize what the success happened or how success was ignited with Warhammer 40K. And with Commander decks, usually you have a little give because you can design new cards, of course, right? But you also have a lot of repeats, so there's less cards to design for a Commander deck, and there's more space. You don't have to worry about balance too much because most of the cards are not going to be legal in most formats. So they can design that a little bit quicker, right? Where most standard sets are like 2 years ahead, Commander decks usually are not going to be that long ahead, right? So there's a lot more leeway. And of course, they've seen what was successful with Warhammer 40K. And that proves WOTC can design really good Commander decks. And the way that this is playing out, the way that's themed, it gives me this kind of hope that this is going to be Warhammer 40K level Commander decks. However, that really depends on 2 things. One is, number one, how many new cards are introduced. Warhammer 40K decks were so good because they introduced 40-ish cards per deck. So almost half the deck is new, right? The other half is like land. So basically the entire deck is new, right? And then the other part of it too is they did that for all 4 decks. There's over 160 new cards and super on flavor. If you know Warhammer, you love the cards, right? What if they do something like that for Lord of the Rings? it's going to be insane. It's going to change all the meta for Commander. And on top of that, like you got Riders Rohan, the Armies of Mordor, like all these decks, it just feels so flavorful. The elves are in it, and Sam and Frodo. It's cool. Like imagine sitting down at a Commander table with those 4 decks. It definitely feels like you're playing not Magic, but you're living out the story of Lord of the Rings, which I think has a lot of draw for Commander players. And whether you like Lord of the Rings or not, I can tell you, you're going to have a good time doing something like that. It's just going to be a lot more like really interesting reading some of the flavor text and understanding the story there. Which brings me to the next topic, which serialized rings. We got there, guys. First of all the positives, right? Number one, they're accessible. So no matter what you think about like the rings and whatever, first of all, they serialize Soul Ring. Everyone has a Soul Ring. Yes, you may want the special one. You might want the special artwork one. You want the one that's written in Elvish, basically. Of course, it's nice, but it's not necessary. Everyone has a Soul Ring, so you don't need the serialized version of it. But it does look really cool for your Commander deck. And let's be honest, the fact that they've serialized the Soul Rings and they did it on flavor, 900 the rings for men, 700 for the rings of the dwarves, and 300 for the rings of the elves. Like, 3 rings for the elves, 7 for the dwarves, 9 for the men doomed to die. Yeah, on flavor, super good. And even the non-serialized version, so the normal frame ones, I don't even think they're foil. They will also be limited quantity too. Now, like 9,000 is a pretty high number, so it is limited, but it's not really that limited. But again, it's nice that they're limited at all. I wonder though, what happens when there's a product replacement? Like, imagine if the ring, like, they shipped it, but it's like broken, and you have to ship it back to WOTC. Do they give you a replacement ring? Do they have to have you ship it back where they destroy it? Not sure how that works, especially for these serialized and numbered cards, right? Yeah. Look, the One Ring, one ring, and we got there. Magic now has a 1 of 1. And it's actually pretty good. It's on flavor. It's the right card to print it on. The artwork, I think, is pretty cool. Let's see how the foiling works. Blake just mentioned it's like normal foiling. I don't know what that means, but I wish they've done more. I mean, they can do textured foil now. They can do all this other stuff. So could they just do a little bit more? Second of all, how do you make sure that factories don't print more than one? Because they have test prints, they have all this stuff. I'm pretty sure they're gonna gatekeep this really closely. But there's some comments like jokesters on the stream actually said like, hey, there's gonna be 2 on YouTube. Yeah, like, of course there will be. But the negatives. Actually, I'm not against it. Well, I guess that's not just a surprise to most people who watch my channel. I'm not against serialized cards. I think serialized cards is a great way for new players to collect cards and to find value in their collectibles. And honestly, at this point, I don't know what we could complain about, because the reality is they made the ring accessible. The One Ring is a rare or mythic rare ring, but it's also available in every single bundle. In every single bundle, you get one of the One Rings. I think you actually get all 4 of the artwork cards or whatever that piece together into that scene where they toss the ring into the fire, and Golem's like kind of going out there reaching it. So to me, what's the problem with that? If you want a One Ring, you can probably get one for very cheap. I'm pretty sure that card is going to be like a bulk mythic rare at this point, because again, there's just so many copies. All the bundles have it. Like, think about every single bundle promos. What happens to the bundle promos? They're always bulk rare, right? Even with their special art, whatever, it doesn't matter, because again, it's available. The card is also available in the normal sets. You open packs, you're gonna get One Rings. You open bundles, you get One Rings. And sometimes when you open collector's boosters, you get the special 1 of 1 One Ring. Very rarely, but So to me, I think it's totally fine. And this is exactly the way you should do it, because now you're segregating the players who want to have the cards to play, but also the players or the collectors or investors, whatever you want to call us, that want the One Ring to hold for long-term value. Now, I think the really interesting question is, what is the One Ring going to be worth? Let's do this. I'll make a follow-up video about what I think. I've told some of my friends locally about what I think the One Ring will be worth on the market value, probably the first sale ever. But we'll leave it as an exercise. Please leave that in the comments. Let me know what you think the One Ring will be worth. let's see how close you are to my theory. So I'll do a little. Let's do a video later on serialized cards in general and how they're performing and all that stuff. But yeah, honestly, I don't understand who's angry at this point. This is the right way to do it. This is the right way to serialize cards. You serialize cards that are cool, on flavor, and for the collectors, they're going to have a special card. For the people who want to play, they're going to have accessible to the card in every format, in every single style. So I think it's totally good. The monetization. So far, if you haven't figured this out, all of this is to just sell product. At this point, I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, your Lord of the Rings set has pre-release, it has set boosters, draft boosters, collector boosters, things that we already expect. The jumpstart boxes, don't know why that still exists. That product line needs to die. The commander decks, which will probably sell pretty well this time around, as well as your starter deck and other kind of like proliferary supplemental products along with it, right? They're your gift bundle and the bundle. By the way, so I mean, it's pretty clear now. Gift bundle is the new collector's bundle or collector's version of the bundle. So there's going to be 2 bundles and whatever, 3 booster boxes if you include set jumpstart booster boxes 4. Yikes. So anyways, yeah, it's all about monetization and them putting all the serialized cards in there, them putting the One Ring in there. Can you imagine if like we're about 1 to 2 months in, people were cracking collector packs like crazy and no one has found a collector's a One Ring? How are the people who have sealed boxes going to feel? Think about it this way too, right? Because they're serialized cards, they actually basically have to have a upper limit on how many collector's boosters they print. They can't print more, right, later. Imagine like this. As a collector, this is actually really interesting for a collector's booster. If you don't open your collector's booster, you just kind of sit on it. And as people crack packs and don't get the ring, every collector boosters that's left unopened now goes up in value. That includes gift bundles, which include a collector booster pack. And Blake explicitly said it could be in the gift bundle, that collector booster pack, or it could be in the, collector booster box. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to sell the Walmart blister pack stuff as well, but I'm assuming those could also have the One Ring, the one of one serialized ring. So there's going to be a lot of different ways that someone could potentially get this card. And if people don't crack the card, every box has to go up in price, right? It's kind of interesting to think about it. So in some weird way, they're also giving stability to that secondary market of people who buy the collector's booster and hold. But on the flip side, if somebody opens the One Ring, every collector booster now goes down. So it's kind of risky too. So just think about that from that perspective. If you plan on holding that product, my recommendation, kind of think about it a little bit and see long-term what you want to do. But absolutely, it's all about monetization, like serialized card, non-serialized cards that are also limited, the One Ring, right? The one of one ring, box toppers. The draft set boosters, collector boosters have box toppers. They're going to have the Great Henge, Ensnaring Bridge, a bunch of other ones too. So look, Great Henge is like an $80 card, right? Ensnaring Bridge is pretty expensive too. So honestly, there's a lot of options here. Good reprints, right? So they feel like more like almost like the Zendikar, like Zendikar Expeditions, that type of feeling for their toppers, which is nice. It's really good. All of this is sell more boxes. Of course. What did you expect? So let's talk about the negatives, some of the other negatives that I have not covered in the previous sections here. Black Aragorn, we got here. Honestly, I'm not sure why they did this. Let's talk flavor or lore, right? Aragorn is a Dunedain. He's basically a men of the north. They're the rangers of the north. They're kind of like men, but they live a lot longer than normal men, but they live way less than elves, right? So let's say, imagine like normal humans would live, let's say 80 years. The Dunedain would live like 150, 200 years, something like that. So they have longer life, but they're not elf, like immortality life type of thing. And they're definitely not, they're still human, right? North is cold. So the people of the north are usually not black. Sorry, that's just how it is. Like we don't need to make up stuff, right? There's not necessary. Like, look, okay, here's another good example. Game of Thrones. The north, full of white people. Okay, just how it is. Like as you go north, or look at real life, Iceland, Greenland. Okay, look at like Russia. Russia doesn't have a bunch of black people in there. Just again, less sun means you're not going to be black. Now on the south side, I'm not against like black people in general in Lord of the Rings. Okay, I think just let's make it make sense. Maybe they could have made a bunch of citizens of Gondor black because that's more south, more sunlight, whatever, right? Just again, I don't understand why this was necessary to do it this way. Modern was definitely slapped on to just make more money. I don't think this is going to be very impactful for Modern. I think honestly the cards are just more for Commander. Um, the last thing is about this whole like Universes Beyond and bringing more players. WotC thinks has this idea, grand idea, of course, like of if we print Universes Beyond and we print things like Lord of the Rings, we're going to bring new players who are Lord of the Rings fans into Magic. I'm just going to be honest, that's not going to happen. What's actually happening is that we just have more Magic players who also like Lord of the Rings play the set. That's just what it's going to be. So I hope WotC's not actually spending a ton of money for this like IP crossover, stuff. But if they are, like, hey, guess what? You're just gonna cut into your own profits by doing something like this. You could have done a Magic version of this and still had a fairly decent return on your investment. So that's all I have to say for the set. Honestly, it's looking pretty good. There's some negatives, but they're pretty minor. And the fact that we've gotten a 1/1, this is the first set, and we'll see in the future if there's going to be more 1/1 serialized cards. But this is the first set they've done this, and it will be impactful. Remember what I said: the first time WotC does anything, usually it's going to be pretty good. This is Mark, Solo Games. Stay classy.